Okay, so I think that this Zoom is going to be the best way to do this, but TBD, just hang with me. So this looks really hectic. It looks like a lot. I have it up now to show you what the end product is, where we're going, and then we will walk through it step by step and recap. But overall, we're going to remember all of the classes of of antibiotics with this mnemonic going down. Then we're going to be able to remember which ones are gram negative, gram positive, or both, as well as what the mechanism of action is, and then just a couple important things to remember about each category. So let's get started. We're going to come over here and we're going to start with our main mnemonic, which is antibiotics. Ooh, what's going on? Antibiotics can terminate, and excuse the handwriting, protein synthesis for microbial cells like germs. So that's our main mnemonic. Antibiotics can terminate protein synthesis for microbial cells like germs, which makes a lot of sense and is easier to remember once you realize that you're literally just explaining what antibiotics do. Antibiotics can, some of them, terminate protein synthesis for microbial cells like germs, aka bacteria. So pretty self-explanatory. If you want the pretty version again, here it is. But going back to this, once you have your mnemonic up here at the top, you're going to write all of them going down. So we've got maybe we can make this a little thicker actually. That was not any better. Okay, try that. Antibiotics can terminate protein synthesis for microbial cells like germs. Now we're going to write the full name of each category going across, but in a very specific way, which just stick with me. You'll understand it whenever we get there. I already tried recording this video once explaining why we're writing things the specific way in the beginning, and that didn't really work. So we're going to try this. But if you need to, you can just follow along. Just watch me the first time you watch this video, and then you can repeat it a second time following along. That way you can kind of see where we're going and understand the forest before you start getting lost in the individual trees. So here we go. We've got no, all caps, no glycosides. Then we have cephalosporins. Then tetracyclines. But I spelled that wrong. Cyclines, penicillin, sulfo, big caps, and then we're going to put no in caps as well, but small caps, little baby caps here. No mites. Then we've got our, oh gosh, I always spell fluoroquinolones wrong. Fluoro. Fluoroquin in caps. Olones. Then we've got our macrolides. Carbapenems. Jesus Christ. Carbapenems. Glycosamides. and glycopeptides. From here, the next thing we're going to do is go away. Underline every place where you see IDES, IDES, except in the case of sulfonamides, because we have our capitalized little no here. We exclude sulfonamides from this. So we're going to underline our IDES, and we'll do it in a different color. IDES, 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 and IDES. So you should have 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first, and underlining the IDES is going to tell you if it's gram-negative, gram-positive, or both. All of them cover both except the ones that we've underlined here. Aminoglycosides, it's amino glycosides. So that's going to be gram-negative coverage. Gram-negative. Then down here, we've got gram-positive, gram-positive, and gram-positive. So all of them cover both, except aminoglycosides are gram-negative, and the other IDES, being macrolides, lincosamides, and glycopeptides, are gram-positive. That's all you need to do for understanding gram-negative versus gram-positive coverage. Next, we're going to write another super short, quick blurb here at the bottom. It's malt, like malt shakes, malt protein powder, malt protein, not powder, but malt protein synthesis. And you don't have to write out the whole thing after you've done it a couple times, but for the sake of completeness, I will. Malt protein synthesis inhibition. Okay. Malt protein synthesis inhibition. Now we're going to go find the M, A, L, and T here. Got her. M. How are we going to do this? We'll circle it. M, A, L, and T. These are our malt protein synthesis inhibitors. So you know their mechanisms of action are going to be protein synthesis inhibition. But Samantha, some of them are 30S, some of them are 50S. How do I remember? Super easy. The first 2 are 30, the second 2 are 50. It goes smallest to biggest, growing as you get down. So we've got protein syn, and we'll write 30S protein synth 30S protein synth 50S and protein synth 50S. All right, so now that we have those mechanisms of action, what about the rest of them? Well, the next ones are super easy to remember because they're the only other ones where we wrote special things. So we've got our sulfonamides, the pho standing for, we gotta go a little smaller. Folate synthesis inhibition. Okay, and then we have our fluoroquine. Quin alones. Samantha, what does quin mean? Quin, like quintuplets, that's replication, multiplication. Quintuplets, you have 5 of the same thing, 5 copies. This is just DNA synthesis inhibition. And if you want to be extra special, it's DNA synthesis inhibition by inhibiting topoisomerase. So I don't know why this worked really well, but this was included in the EZMed video that this whole situation here is derived from. They said fluoroquinolones, think quintuplets, think DNA replication or DNA synthesis. So we're going to say DNA synthesis inhibition. We'll just put inhibit. I ran out of room. Oops. And we'll erase. DNA synth. I can assume that you'll know that that's DNA synthesis inhibition, just like the protein synth is protein synthesis inhibition. DNA synth, and then it's via topoisomerase. Easy to remember because that's a super fun word. And the rest literally could not be easier than this, you guys. You just fill in the rest of them. They're all the same. It's peptidoglycan synthesis inhibition, the peptidoglycan inhibition. So I'll just write peptidoglycan. It's just filling in the blanks, filling in the remainings. Peptidoglycan. Peptidoglycan. Boom, there you go. So we've, in just a couple minutes, only a couple of seconds whenever you're actually writing it out and you don't have to go slow and talk through it, but just a couple seconds, we've gone through and done the categories and their mechanisms of action and their gram negative, gram positive, or both coverage. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Super fast and easy. And that alone will get you a bunch of points because you know you're going to get some questions about what is the mechanism of action of X, Y, and Z drug? What is what is inhibited by X, Y, and Z drug? If you know that it's like levofloxacin, for example, you know that's a fluoroquinolone. DNA synthesis inhibition, topoisomerase. Boom, you pick that answer, you move on. You didn't even have to go through the pains of having to remember every single drug because you've got this whole thing right here for you. So where are we going to go next? Now, I mean, that's the whole basis of it. There's a couple things that I chose to add. You can either stop here if you want. I probably wouldn't recommend doing that because this part is super easy and helps you get extra points. So the first thing I do is just remembering which ones are bactericidal and the rest that aren't bactericidal are therefore bacteriostatic. So we've got a suicide death star. Suicide because, I don't know, it's more fun than saying suicide, and suicide for bactericidal. So I put that on A, C, P, F, and G. And the way you can remember that is all suicidal people fear guillotines. I don't know why they do, but I guess, I don't know, if you're suicidal, maybe you would rather kill yourself than be killed publicly in a guillotine. Who knows? So we'll do our suicidal death star. And I'll go ahead and write here that it's all suicidal. I don't know why I wrote it that way. I could have done S. Suicidal people fear guillotines. Okay, so this one, I know that there are two C's. You're always going to do the first C for cephalosporins instead of carbapenems because it goes in order. All suicidal people fear guillotines. If you accidentally used this C, it would be fear suicidal guillotine, and that doesn't make any sense. So, all suicidal people fear guillotines. And wham bam, now you know all of the drugs that are going to be bactericidal, not bacteriostatic. All of the ones that don't have the Death Star are going to be bacteriostatic. All right, moving on from that is just our fun little additions. We'll circle to cephalosporins last, just because that one's obviously a little bit more complicated. For this, I would highly recommend watching the DirtyMed video on cephalosporins. It's free 99 and really, really, really helps. Even if you don't remember, the whole video, as long as you remember these main points, that'll be really helpful. And we'll go through that at the end. But these are just extra things that I like to add to each thing to help me, remember important or high yield facts about it. So going through it just one by one, I don't have them honestly even for every single one. I just did the ones that are important to me. You can choose to do them. You can do different ones. You can add more, whatever you want to do. But these are the ones that myself and Mia found to be the most high yield. So first, starting with tetracyclines. Tetracyclines are going to treat or are able to treat intracellular pathogens. So tetracycline tricellular. I don't know, man, don't ask me, it just works. So anything that is facultatively intracellular, if you're being treated with a tetracycline, that might give you a clue as to what the diagnosis might be. So clues being they're being treated with a tetracycline and, whatever their symptoms are, what's the organism? Well, you're going to pick whichever organism is facultatively intracellular, which is way more high yield than you would think it is. Maybe not for this exam you have coming up, but definitely for COMLEX. Also, tetracyclines are teratogenic or tetragenic. Tetragenic. So those are just the two things that I remember about tetracyclines. Moving on to the penicillins. I think the most high yield one is to know that piperacillin also has pseudomonas. Can I not write? Okay, there we go. Piperacillin also has Pseudomonas coverage. It's the only one in the penicillins category that does, so that's important. Then moving on to fluoroquinolones. QTs keep it floxy. What the fuck does this mean? So fluoroquinolones often have the flox phrase in them, like levofloxacin, for example, flox. So QTs keep it floxy, floxy being your cue to remember that this is regarding fluoroquinolones. But QTs, what does that mean? QT prolongation. This is such a high yield thing to remember. High yield, high yield, high yield. QT prolongation with those fluoroquinolones. What does that mean? You'll find out in cardio, or maybe not. I never did. It's just a fact that I remember. Just kidding. I do know what it is, kind of. It's fine. QT prolongation with our fluoroquinolones. Then we've got our lonely bones without tendons. What does that mean? Fluoroquinolones have the interesting ADE of tendon rupture. So we've got our fluoroquinolones. You mean lonely bones because they don't have tendons? Because the tendon's ruptured? Tendon rupture. I think after writing this over and over and over again, I stopped writing out QTs keep it floxy and lonely bones without tendons and just literally wrote QT prolongation and tendon rupture. But if, the fun little phrases help you remember, I think it's totally fun. QTs keep it floxy. I don't know why that sounds kind of like we're calling like cuties being like easy, floxy, floozy. I don't know. It works. QTs keep it floxy. And we have our lonely bones without tendons with our fluoroquinolones. Next, we've got our macrolides. This one, I, myself, and Mia, who I studied for boards most of the time with, for some reason just had a hard time remembering that like the azithromycin drugs were macrolides, because there's not really a clue in the name macrolides to what drugs are included in that class. So we have macro throw, like your big throw, you're throwing that ball, macro throw, damn, Kobe, macro throw, macrolides, macro throw, or azithromycin, all your throws, it works. So there's that one. Oh, we're still on eraser. So there's that one, our macrolides and our macro throw. Carbapenems, I didn't really write anything. I don't know, they're kind of boring, nothing to see there. Like a last choice option for me, I don't know, they're boring. Lincosamides, I just always had a hard time remembering what drugs were lincosamides. The most high yield one is clindamycin. I think that's how you spell it, clindamycin. So I said like Clinda. This actually circles back to our main mnemonic here, because the Q word in our mnemonic for lincosamides was like. So we've got our like here and our like here, like Clinda, like Linda, like Clinda, clindamycin. Something, I don't know, interesting to think about. I don't know if it's particularly important for you at this moment, but I was watching an OnlineMedEd video, and he said pretty much anytime you are using clindamycin, it's for an infection in the thorax, especially the lungs. So I don't know, just a little tidbit I carried around in my brain with me rent-free for no reason, because it hasn't really come in handy, but I don't know, I just always remember it. When I think of clindamycin, I think of infections in the lungs. All right, moving on, glycopeptides. Again, I had a hard time remembering what drugs were included in this category and what they did. So glycopeptides, you mean vancopeptides for vancomycin? Glycopeptides, vancopeptides. And then what does vancomycin cover? Why is it special? It covers for MRSA. So we've got vancopeptide, aka vancomycin. And there you go, it just works. So then circling back to the cephalosporins, and I'll include this on the walkthrough over here. If I can function. After I walk through all of it here, we'll go write it out. So first gen, second gen, third gen, fourth gen, fifth gen. It's important to remember what each of the generations do, because you absolutely will get questions about it, and you'll get questions that don't tell you, you know, what the drug is or anything like that. It'll just tell you, oh no, we can come back here. So we've got our first gen covers PEC. If you don't know what that stands for, go look at first aid. Second gen is HENS PEC, so PEC and then HENS PEC. That'll carry you through quite a lot. 10 out of 10 recommend looking at first aid and just kind of getting familiar with that. Third gen, the most important ones to remember, there's two of them, ceftriaxone. Ceftriaxone is like the most commonly used one, at least according to my didactic years, who knows about real life. And then ceftazidime. So ceftazidime is important because it is the first one in the cephalosporin lineup that covers for Pseudomonas. Then for fourth gen, we've got cefepime or ceforpime, and that also covers for Pseudomonas a little bit more strongly. So in the case of a Pseudomonas infection or suspected Pseudomonas infection, you're going to start with your lowest option, and then you'll move up to your highest option. Okay. Then for the fifth gen, you've got ceftaroline, like Sweet Caroline, ba, 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 ceftaroline, ba, ba, ba. Okay, who cares? Ceftaroline, and that's the only one in the lineup that covers for MRSA here. So there you go, ceftaroline, MRSA, ceforpime, Pseudomonas. In your third gen, you've got ceftriaxone and ceftazidime, which ceftazidime covers for Pseudomonas, and then gen 1 is PEC, and gen 2 is HENS PEC. So there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. And we'll add that over here. So boop, boop, boop. We'll do all of these in pink, because why not? So starting at the, where are we going to start? Tetracyclines. We've got intracellular, cellular, I can't spell, or tetracycline intracellular. And then we've also got our teratogenic or tetragenic. For penicillins, we have piperacillin, and that covers for Pseudomonas. Fluoroquine alone, so we've got QTs, Kebitfloxy, which means QT prolongation. And then we've got our lonely bones without tendons, which means tendon rupture. Then we have our macrothrows. Lincosamides is like Clinda. And then our glycopeptides, we've got vancopeptide / vancomycin. And then again, for the cephalosporins, we've got our 5 classes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Got our PEC ends, PEC, ceftriaxone, ceftazidime, I always spell this wrong, and ceftazidime is Pseudomonas, so we'll just put pseudo. And then we've got our cefepime or ceforpime, ceforpime, and that's also going to be Pseudomonas. And then lastly, we'll bring this down just a little bit. We have our ceftaroline, because Caroline, it's just such a cute name. And that's going to be for MRSA. Bada bing, bada boom. And there you go, you're done. Antibiotics can terminate protein synthesis for microbial cells like germs. We know gram negative, gram positive versus both. We know mechanism of action. We know which ones are 30S, which ones are 50S. We know that sulfonamides is DNA synthesis inhibition. Fluoroquinolones is, I'm sorry, folate synthesis inhibition. Fluoroquinolones are DNA synthesis inhibition via topoisomerase. We know which ones are bactericidal versus bacteriostatic. And we know some important key facts to remember about all of them, which you can add, not add, do different ones, however you please. But there you go. And I will erase this so you get the pretty version. And actually, I can just send you this pretty version too. But bada bing, bada boom. There you go. Sorry this took so long.